Well, Blaze, you've made a return here today. We're seeing your face today. It's been a long, long time since you've actually been on YouTube talking about health and all that other good stuff, and also facial structure and all that stuff
Yeah.
that you used to talk about. It's good talking to you. How have you been?
I've been pretty good. I'd say there's a lot of things that I learned in the process. Not just that, also adjusting my carnivore diet a little bit because for instance, I used to love eggs. Like I really used to love eggs. I mean, I eat them all the time, but I can't eat them as much as I would like to because I've noticed my personal reaction with them isn't as good. So I have the eggs have trypsin inhibitors in them, and every single time
Yes.
I have eggs, I get water in in end result. So that's why I look at it. I'm like, I gotta really cut it down on the eggs. As much as I love the taste of eggs, believe me, I love the taste of eggs. But my
Right.
stomach is really sensitive to that, so I sadly can't have that. But everything else, like I eat perfectly fine. I mean, basically, especially pork. I eat a lot of pork. So
Oh,
pork is
good.
weird. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Good. Good. As you pastured, you getting
Uh,
pastured?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay, good, 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 good.
yeah.
Pastured pork is yeah, pastured pork is good. Pastured pork is good. Um, well, no, I decided to, like I said, it's good talking to you again for the first time in a while. I think it's been like a year since we've talked, maybe a little less than that. But I wanted to talk to you about the same thing that I've been talking to everyone else about in recent days, which is the recent controversy surrounding the reintroduction of carbohydrates back into people's diets on a carnivore diet, and the reasons for why they are purporting to the purported reasons as to why they're doing so. That I hate to be cynical because it's not good for the person that is being cynical, and it's not good for anyone else. But a certain level of it is important, and so I hate to be cynical, but I struggle to believe that these are the actual reasons why people are reintroducing them. So I wanted to get your thoughts on this. Have you seen any of this after since you've not necessarily completely left the movement, but sort of separated yourself, become more distant from said movement? Have you seen any of that in recent weeks?
I've I know that Paul Saladino, at least at the time, who I was reviewing a lot of, because he was like changing it, and he was like, "Oh, I need carbs now," right? And I mean, maybe with the amount of exercise that he's doing, because I've like reviewed one video, and I was like, "Oh my God, this guy's outside for like 6 or 8 hours, like on a freaking surfboard, and then on a
Uh-huh.
skateboard afterwards. Like he might be outside the entire day." So he's probably sweating profusely, like nonstop, but. Other than Saladino, I probably would say no. I haven't heard about it, but the fact that it is happening, strangely enough, does not surprise me because knowing people and knowing, especially sugar or their addiction, I would say it's an addiction at this point because even I've been carnivore for 3 years, and anytime I try to reintroduce something, like if I try to reintroduce, I before two years ago or so, a long time ago, I tried to reintroduce carbs and I threw up. Didn't work.
Mm.
And the reason, main reason, my assumption is because why I threw up was because the stomach pH ended up going up whenever I had carbohydrates, and that means that certain things that maybe were in the I don't know meats that I was eating before weren't actually being fully, I guess you could say, gotten rid of, and
Okay. Okay.
some
Yeah. Yeah.
bacteria, right, basically was living there, and it ended up screwing my stomach up. I ended up throwing up, and I was like, "Oh, well, that was a mistake." And then I tried introducing other things, never seemed to work. And I look at it and I go, honestly, even when I tried to, and I didn't want to introduce it, by the way, I still tried it because I was like, for the hell of science, what the hell, right? Might as well try. Didn't work still. So the only thing that I've tried as of recently is spices, and that's because I had a spice addiction. And what's funny is I added it back in, and I can only take maybe 2 days of it before my taste buds were like, "Get me out of here! Please stop it!" Like I hate the taste. I hate the taste compared to
Hmm.
before, which is really interesting. So I look at it and I'm like, "Huh, there's definitely something. There's clearly something there." Because I used to be a spice addict. I mean, if I don't know if I still have the spices, but I used to have this thing called the End. It's basically like pure capsaicin. It's pepper spray almost.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, if you touch it and then you touch your eyes or any of
Yeah.
the downwards regions, yeah, exactly. It's gonna burn. It's gonna sting like hell. So I even now I really don't like it that much. So I think it's honestly I think it's just like trying to reintroduce something back in and somewhat of an addiction because I know I used to have a sugar addiction and after long enough carnivore I don't have a sugar addiction anymore. Same with
Hmm.
spice addiction. I don't even want to have spices. So I think the relation to that is because um, certain bacteria in the stomach will send they basically from my understanding anyways they'll tell your taste buds, hey, I want to eat this, hey, I want to eat this, hey, I want to eat this. And people, these bacteria, I think they can also go into stasis. I'm not too sure how heavily researched this is, but I think some of these bacteria can go into stasis for a while and then suddenly they will reemerge and then this person goes, oh my god, I want to eat carbs, and it's because the bacteria reemerge and they're going, oh, I want to eat carbs. Something like that happens, right? So that's my sort of thought. I look at it and I go, that's probably the reason, probably, but I'm not entirely sure why. But that's my assumption.
Yep. Yeah. No, I think that we're on the same page with the carbohydrate addiction being the actual reason for reintroducing carbs. I mean, the reasons that are being thrown around right now are the same ones that get thrown around every year or two, for about like a week or I mean up to a month. I mean, we're recently we had the whole sugar diet craze a few months ago, where everyone was basically dumping hundreds of grams of sugar down their throats in the forms of, oh my gosh, are you unaware that this
I am
happened?
completely unaware that this happened. Holy shit. Are you serious?
Yes, man. Yeah,
Oh my God.
So it's like Sour Patch Kids on the extreme ends. Like people were just having it in any form whatsoever because the idea was that it was basically the movement was popularized by Cole Robinson, the snake diet guy, and
Ah,
he decided to basically telling people that they could have as many fruit smoothies as they want to, and they'll be losing a bunch of fat. And to be fair, it worked for about, I don't know, a few days for these people until they started to rebound. These are most of the people that were talking about it online were people that were carnivore, but they were experiencing like weight loss stalling or even sometimes weight gain, and which can happen. And there's a very prevalent reason as to why it happens, which I think is under eating. And I think it's pretty much unanimously agreed upon with every single coach that I've spoken with about this topic. But the sugar would speed up their metabolic rate by my estimation, and they would be losing fat, but they would also be losing muscle. And then, well, the reason that it stopped after less than a month, I think, but maybe just at most a month, was because it everyone over. It really did. It every single person over that did it. And there's like one or two people. There are one or two people that are still holding on tenaciously to this idea that you can just eat hundreds of grams of carbs every day and be totally fine with no exercise, no resistance training, none of that. But
uh,
the yeah, no, this happened once before this year, but it's because there's a more mainstream um instance of this happening within the last week or two, which has been, people that have been low carb, ketogenic, carnivore for, in some cases, in one person in particular, 20 years. They're starting to, in the last 2 years at least, but especially being more vocal about it in the last week or two, again, has started to reintroduce hundreds of grams of carbs into their diet because of metrics like their T3 being lower and their fasting blood glucose being higher, their HbA1c being higher, and all of these blood markers that are being taken out of context. So I wanted to, sort of bring you back into the picture here a bit. Get your thoughts on all of that and why you think that those issues need to. What would you do? What would you do? What would you say to these people personally in your own experience, being carnivore, to perhaps dissuade them rather, against introducing hundreds of grams of carbs into their diet? What would you tell them to do first?
first, I would ask why hundreds of grams of carbohydrates? That's to me this is like a shocker. I'm actually shocked. I'm very surprised people are doing this, but yeah, I'm shocked. I'm really shocked. So I would ask, why exactly are they introducing the hundreds of grams of carbohydrates? And the second thing I would be asking is there, a lot of people don't like to admit this all the time, but you might have a craving. Like genuinely, you might look at something and be like, I want to eat this. Like if I look at on TV, if I look at like a lot of these advertisements, on like ice cream or whatever. Let's say they're serving ice cream on TV, right? I don't look at that as food anymore. It's literally not even food. It doesn't look edible, it doesn't look tasty or anything. But if that's viewed by somebody else who eats carbohydrates and actually views that as food, then they sort of like look at that as food. So I think what their taste buds are saying or asking for might be helpful because it might tell me whether or not there's like certain bacteria are in stasis and then they're just reemerging. I'm not too sure if that's their that's one thing. This another thing that I might ask is when it comes to carbohydrates, is there I feel like most people might deny this, but like my case, it was spices. Is there any one that you genuinely had an addiction to before? Like you genuinely would eat a lot of? Because there's this one woman that I reviewed, I remember, and before she went carnivore, she said, I was genuinely addicted to one of these fruits and specifically one of these fruits, but none of the other fruits I was addicted to. I didn't even like them. So it sort of makes me wonder if there's like maybe a specific amount or a quantity um, of a specific kind of bacteria trigger this sort of response of like addiction. Third, all these blood markers. So there's a lot of blood markers I would say that change on carnivore, obviously. So first, your or at least from my experience, anyways. My T3, which ones did you mention again?
T3, HbA1c, and fasting glucose.
T3, HbA1c, and fasting glucose.
Yeah.
So, and you said the fasting glucose.
Yeah, the fasting glucose is going higher in certain people,
Okay.
which, I mean, that's not necessarily a problem, and I can get into that um, in a bit. But
Yeah, I was gonna say, I that doesn't sound like necessarily a problem to me. What was it like an extreme amount, or was it just like a
well,
really small amount that I'd be like, oh my God, it went up by like, I don't know,
yeah,
one.
yeah, right, right. So, I mean, it depends on the reports that you're looking at. It seems that the changes in fasting blood glucose typically are not going to go beyond like 110 milligrams per deciliter.
Okay.
And so, well, and here's the thing. Here's the thing. The fasting blood glucose reading, people put a lot of emphasis on that, and I always do this whole Socratic method thing, where if people they have a worry about something, and I go, okay, why? And they go, well, because glucose glycates tissues, and I go, right. So the reason that you're worried about your fasting blood glucose is because glucose above a certain amount will glycate your tissues, it'll glycate your proteins, it'll derange them, your collagen, your albumin, all that stuff. And they're like, yeah. And I go, okay, so wouldn't it be better to measure your actual glycation rate, not the fasting blood glucose, to see if your worry is actually substantiated? And they go, well, yeah. Well, fortunately, we have a test for that, and it's called the fructosamine assay, which actually measures your rate of glycation of your proteins like albumin in your blood plasma. And what you'll often see is, despite the fact that these people are having higher blood glucose readings, fasting blood glucose, their fructosamine assays are lower than the average person that's eating lots of carbohydrates and may very well have a lower fasting glucose, like Paul Saladino.
Ah, really?
Yeah, yes, exactly. What a shock. And the other thing that I ask is, I go, okay, hold on a minute. You're not eating carbs, right? And they go, yeah. And I go, okay. Besides like the few grams that you're going to get from animal products here and there. And they're like, yeah. And I go, okay. So where did that glucose come from? And they go, well, my body made it. And I'm like, right. So it's a demand driven process, isn't it? That we're talking about. And they're like, yeah. And I go, well, there you go. So if the body produced it, then the body deemed it appropriate to be produced in that amount. Now, that's a weaker argument, to be fair. It's weaker only because your body can very well your genes can be put in an environment that makes them produce a certain level of something. And as much as it's appropriate for them to do so, it doesn't mean that it's not distressing to the organism. It's not counterproductive because of the environment in which it's been placed. So you can very well be like, you can exhibit really, really high glucose levels that are strictly produced by the liver because you're in a super, super stressful situation chronically. That's not a good thing. However, it's not, the problem isn't the genes producing glucose. The genes are doing what they're supposed to do given the circumstances. You just need to get out of that circumstance. So it's on the weaker end of the argument, but it's still something that helps contextualize the problem, like the purported problem. Like, the fasting blood glucose is not the sole sort of litmus test for glycation damage and glycation rate. It's not. Okay, and same thing with HbA1c. HbA1c is worse. HbA1c is a measure of your average glycation rate over the course of 2 to 4 months of your hemoglobin, but that is influenced by length of red blood cell lifespan, for example, which ostensibly goes up when you're carnivore because you're not destroying them more readily.
I wonder
Um,
how,
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I think that the problem is that a lot of these blood markers and these blood tests are being taken out of context. And I know that you've reviewed many people on your channel before. Have you ever seen that before? Have you ever gotten into some I call it bread and circuses because they'll be distracted by these numbers and blood tests. What is your response to people that are addled by those numbers and are freaked out despite perhaps feeling totally fine on their diet in their current situation?
Yeah, so I think yeah, that's actually a really good point. So I think a lot of people they sometimes always I hate saying this too because I'm such an advocate of it, but they always think of like science as the end all be all, but then they sort of forget that like personal experience is a thing. So if they're feeling perfectly fine, if they're functioning perfectly fine, actually maybe even better than they were before, and then suddenly their numbers just like go up and then or go down, whatever you it doesn't really matter what goes up or down, right? But basically they're scared of the number on a paper rather than recognizing how they are feeling and how they are functioning. So it's like, are they getting sudden fatigue out of nowhere, right? Maybe that's like an indicator. Okay, something might be going wrong here, or maybe let's say they're having stomach problems, right? Oh, okay, there might be something wrong there. But if they if they're looking at a number on a paper and not really like taking if they're taking that out of context and not looking at reality at the same time, because that's what the point of the science, by the way. The point of science is to understand like the truths, I guess you could say the truth of the universe. Like, how does the universe function? How does the universe
Yes,
work? So
exactly.
the number on the paper doesn't really mean much if they're feeling great, if not even better than before. So you're sort of like you're kind of taking it out of context and you're relying too much on I guess maybe I could say they're looking too much like tunnel vision. They're tunneling on one
Yes.
specific number and they're going, "Oh my God, this number is like 110. I'm gonna die," right? Or I'm gonna have a
Hmm.
heart attack or something.
Yeah, that's what we call myopia.
Yeah.
Yes, it's looking through a tunnel, like you said, and you're not looking at any. I mean, this is the thing about the universe. Like you made a really good point. Like we've sort of forgotten the point of science. The point of science is to investigate the universe with curiosity, leaning forward and not leaning backward, and basically discovering certain truths about the universe and not inserting your own ideology into those discoveries and using those discoveries to appreciate the universe for how it is and to perhaps make it better with those truths. Okay, that's the point of science. That's the purpose of science. But now what science has been slowly turned into is a perversion of what its original form was, which is now the it, it's been turned into really its own religion in many ways. First of all, because it involves many scientists looking at not certain truths but certain observations and presenting them as if it supports their ideologies as being factual when it cannot inform upon fact, it cannot inform upon causality.
Exactly. Thank you.
It's a way, yeah, it's a way of scientists trying to, it's turned now into a way that scientists attempt to reinforce their own preconceived notions about the universe
Yep.
by
Thank you.
constructing their own models or constructing their own methodologies that they deem to be conducive to actually showing the result that they want to be showed. And that's what I mean. That's why there's such an epidemic of the phenomenon in statistical inference in human nutrition science. Therefore, because that's what it's based on, of like p hacking, for example, which hence the name implies that what they're doing is they're either changing their significance level to basically prove statistical significance to reject the null hypothesis whenever they actually didn't provide any when they didn't provide any evidence for statistical significance in the first significance test, or they stop collecting data after they reach statistical significance, and which is also just a side note. I mean, all of it's based on the fallacy that statistical significance means anything of any utility in the first place when it doesn't.
Exactly.
um, because it's based on the idea that you're actually informing upon the entire population of human beings, which you cannot do. You're informing upon a hypothetical population of human beings, or of cases, if you want to be more specific, that share effectively identical characteristics, are to the cases in your sample, are subject to the same confounding variables and or spurious variables that your cases in your sample were subjected to, that exhibit the same behavior across the duration of time that the study went on for. It's just a bunch of nonsense. So I mean, anyway, yes, that's what science has turned into. And getting to your broader point, because the reason you brought it up is because yes, people are believing this non-science, and as a result of that, they're also being myopic and looking at this test out of any context whatsoever, like no context at all. Okay, they forget that the universe is it's not linear, like X goes to Y goes to Z. That's how humans like to think, but that's
Yes.
not how the universe is. The universe is like, think of a spider web, and every single intersection on that spider web represents a variable, like a random variable, and every single line is bidirectional. So X can have an effect on Y, and Y can also have an effect on X, and then X can also have an effect on another variable,
Yep.
and then this other variable can also have an indirect effect on Y, and like literally all of it is it's a nexus. It's not linear. So that's another I think that people just don't understand the nuance behind certain levels. And I also believe that people are forgetting that if there is no identifiable disease process in your body and you're also feeling totally fine, do not intervene. You're breaking the Hippocratic Oath on yourself when you've done that, which means do no harm. Do not intervene in your own health whenever it's fine, based on a bunch of non-science and theology. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah. No, yeah, because there's so many things that oh my God, you brought up so many things. P hacking is one of them. I remember I made a video on that a long, long time ago.
Yep.
And I'm very glad that you brought that up, because I look at that and I go, thank you. Somebody's finally talking about, oh my God, science is what right now, anyways. I think in so many instances, it's being used as like I'm using it to support my argument and taking it almost all out of context all of the time, rather than
Yes.
looking at it as it actually is. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So, thank you so much. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
well, yeah. I mean, so I didn't know that you made a video about this a while back about p hacking. That's actually really interesting. How much statistics do you know about? I mean, like how I don't know how much you know about it.
Um, I definitely knew quite a bit back then. I know that they, I know, for instance, what they'll do in order to p hack successfully, right? Is they'll introduce more. So what they will do, oh, I hate this so much. What they will do is they will measure like 10 different variables, right? They'll wait for one of those variables to go
Yes.
way out of line, right?
Uh-huh.
And then they go, aha, that's it, right? So that's why
Yep.
there's so much like bullshit where you hear chocolates you can lose weight with chocolate, right? It's because what they did is the guy even said it himself. He purposely made wanted to show just how bad the p hacking is and how easily you can get away with publishing bullshit. Is he took this chocolate, for instance, right? He took the chocolate thing, and then he said, okay, I'm going to measure 10 variables. I'm going to measure sleep, I'm going to measure weight, I'm going to measure like cognitive function. I'm going to measure
Mm-hmm.
like all these different variables, stomach, skin, tons of things, right? And then all he was doing, tons of these variables, all he's doing is waiting for one of them to go out of line. So he's measuring all of these variables in like, I don't know, 100 people or 15 people. I don't know how many people he measured exactly. I can't remember. And then he found one of those variables and they were out of proportion. And why is that? That's because he measured 15 damn variables. and he's
Hmm.
looking for one of them to go out of line. Of course, one of them
Yep.
is probably going to go out of line eventually, or one of them is going to be an oddball. If you only measure 15, that's another thing you can do. Lower your sample size. You really want to p-hack your study?
Yep.
Lower your sample size. Great. Unbelievably successful. I mean, oh my God, I've heard so much bullshit out of lowering your sample size.
Yeah. Well, that's yes, and that's also that's a consequence of introducing more noise into your observation. Because the thing about lowering a sample size is that typically what's going to happen is the larger the sample size you have, typically what happens if there's an actual, even remotely significant relationship between the variables you're studying, is that the variation around that random variable is going to get smaller because you have a lot of cases that you're studying. But the lower the sample is, I mean, practically people can understand this. Like if you take 10 people and you measure their average weight, their average weight might be, 130 pounds plus or minus, like I don't know, like 30 or something. Okay, so and just irrespective of age. So actually, if we're talking about irrespective of age or any other variable, you could actually do a larger standard deviation. So like 130 plus or minus 50 or 60 or something, right? But if you introduce a very, very, very large sample, the standard deviation usually gets smaller. And so whenever you're actually performing significance tests, what you're looking at is a sampling distribution, and you're looking at how far removed from the mean, assuming the null hypothesis is true, that your test statistic actually falls, the statistic that you observed. So you're looking at how far removed it is from that mean, your test statistic is, and you're seeing if it falls within the rejection region, which is what you're saying, if it's out of line or in line. So, in the
Yeah.
rejection region, or if it's within, if it's outside the rejection region. If it's outside the rejection region, it's not statistically significant. You can't reject the null hypothesis. You haven't provided enough evidence to do so. But if you lower your sample size, it becomes really easy to do so because every single standard deviation or standard error actually is which is another problem because it's not a deviation, it's an error. Um, you're you're introducing far greater of an incremental measure that allows it to more easily get into that rejection region, according to, of course, your significance level, which is typically 0.05, which is why you see p of less than 0.05 in all these studies. That's the goal, is try to get less than 0.05. It's
Yeah.
it is a big problem in science, and it's really, I think the most dubious part about it is that a lot of times it's actually not even done intentionally. Sometimes it's not done intentionally at all. You think you're doing like a proper um, investigative method. And in reality, you realize afterwards, you're like, oh, I p-hacked and I didn't even realize I was doing it because you have a natural inclination to try and like just try and prove your alternative hypotheses, those the ones you actually hold. Because that's the goal of science. The null hypothesis is not the hypothesis you actually hold. People also forget that sometimes, like the layman doesn't realize that. They're not testing their own hypothesis. They're testing the opposite of their hypothesis because you're trying to provide enough evidence to reject that hypothesis so you can accept your hypothesis, which is the responsible way to go because you want to
Yep.
actually be able to provide enough evidence to reject the alternative. You're trying to prove the alternative. You're not actually trying,
Yeah, exactly.
anyway. And yeah, you get into a situation where people, they don't even realize what they're doing, and then it come like, yeah, they measure like 15 different things, and then they find the one significant one, and they say, oh, well, there you go. You're gonna, you can use, in your instance, you can use chocolate to lose weight, or red meat will increase your risk of a certain disease by blank percent, and like all these problems with. I mean, this is the problem. People don't understand how to actually interpret the data. They don't know what the numbers mean. They don't know what the numbers mean. They see numbers in these papers that say 95% CI, and then they see like two numbers listed afterwards, and they go, I don't know what that means, but it says statistically significant, so it must be important. No, statistical significance is an absolute atrocious measure of actual significance, like practical or clinical significance. So
Yeah.
anyway, back to blood tests. Back to blood tests. Yeah, so I mean, out of the videos that you've done, I again ask, you've done a video on p-hacking, you've done a video on how science can be misinterpreted and how people completely neglect to consider nuance surrounding their actual health and with respect to the markers that they're seeing. Have you seen anyone that you've like criticized, that you've critiqued online, that have really focused on blood tests and how they can go really out of range, so to speak, on carnivore or any other diet that includes lots of red meat or something, and using that as a reason to not go carnivore, for example, or something like that?
Um, that I could think of. I mean, the only I can't think of anybody off the top of my head who I saw like take a. You're basically saying they took a blood test and then they got worried of their blood test and they started trying to change off of carnivore, right? Because of that.
Yes, yes,
I
yeah.
don't think I've. I don't think there's anybody that I've reviewed like that. The only person that I could maybe like once again the biggest person I'd probably think of would probably be Paul Saladino because I reviewed him a lot, and that he was the only one who was
Okay.
always like super against carnivore because he felt he said he had muscle spasms, right? So I mean, once again, I don't know if there's truth behind it or not, but with the amount of exercise he's doing, I mean, I wouldn't be too surprised if he's feeling muscle spasms with the carbohydrates added. I mean, he's basically working his body. He's working his body out a lot.
Hmm.
So I can't. No, I don't think I can say.
Well, then let's focus on Paul Saladino then. So you said that you've criticized him a few times. You've combated, so to speak, his claims. What in specific, what in particular, did you find problematic with his logic? What were some arguments that he gave, and what did you say in response to them as
Mm,
reasons why those are just it's ridiculous to eat a bunch of fruit and honey in response or something like that?
okay, so there's a lot of ways this can go. Does it go along the line of exercise, or does it go along the line of nutrition, or does it go along the line of exposure to sun, like how long he's out in the sun,
Let's
or
focus. So we can perhaps touch on all of that, but let's focus first on diet, because this is the big controversy right now. Is why people are introducing carbs back into their diets, because they might be developing certain problems, or things that Paul Saladino said that are is a reason to introduce them back in. So let's get into that.
okay. So with the diet, I always sort of so the fact that the amount of honey that I saw this man eat was just crazy. I mean, but every single time I saw him like take a scoop of honey with that with that spoon, it like hurt me inside. I was like, oh
Uh-huh.
my God, like glycation, please, this is too much sugar, right? And it's not even like carbohydrate sugar. By carbohydrate sugar, I mean the one that's actually processed by your body like decently well. For instance, like bread, it's actually processed not by the liver directly, but instead it's like the regular sugar, for instance, fructose as an example, right?
Yeah.
So I look at that and I
Mhm.
was going like, oh my God, this fructose is just it's kill like just watching the amount of fructose that he's having is killing me. Like it's crazy how much fructose he's adding. And then
Mhm.
I tried to compare, I think if I remember correctly, like a before and after of Paul Saladino, like when he introduced carbs after. And I was looking at it, I was like, he definitely looks like he's aging a little quicker there. But
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
might be me. But hey, once again, I'm all about like look at reality, right? Like will carnivore age me instantly? I don't know if you like remember me before, but for the most part, I'm actually better. Like my skin is even
Mhm.
better than before. So I used to have a lot worse skin problems. And oh, I'm staying carnivore, right? Oh my God, my blood markers are being screwed over, but my skin's great. So it's like, no,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Right. So yeah. So there's that. Oh my God, the fructose one just killed me. I couldn't watch it. I couldn't watch that over and over again because it was so painful. I would say that was probably not ideal. The only argument he had that I could maybe justify, maybe, is the fact that he was working out and he was exercising so much. Like this guy was out in the sun the entire time. First off, I'm not necessarily a big fan of going out in the sun the entire time, but if you do, then your body's going to produce, from what I'm aware of, anyways, vitamin D on the outside, and that's in order to protect against the sun. So do I think that's a good idea? I don't really think so. People are saying, "Oh, you're getting more vitamin D when you go out in the sun," right? Yeah, you're getting more vitamin D that's not even usable because it's on the top of your skin. So, and that's right. So it's like it's At least that's what I'm aware of. Because if you look at, people will change pigment, right? They'll, if you're not out in the sun so much, then you'll become lighter, and if you're
Yeah.
in the sun a lot, then you'll become darker, right? That's why people have a tan. So I think the body just adjusts. Once again, this is just the body adjusting to the environment. Him complaining about muscle spasms, and I think it was the fact that something to do with increasing insulin holding minerals or something like that. I think
Yeah.
that was his thing, and that was the reason he was getting those muscle spasms. Is that true? I can't verify it because I don't live like that, right? So I can't necessarily verify it off of my personal experience. Do I think it's true? Um, with the amount that he's working out, I think I would just assume he's getting muscle spasms regardless of whether or not he is carnivore or isn't carnivore, because this man was out like skateboarding for 4 hours or something in a skate rink that I saw, and then afterwards he went outside again, surfing in the sun, like blistering sun, like directly. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, this guy's really exposing his body to like a lot of external pressures. So and you could, and maybe you could argue that those are the reasons he's aging. And you could say, oh, well, he's aging not because of his diet, but because of the exercise and all this stuff. Like, is it true? I think, to be honest, it's the combination of all of them. I think it's the fact that this guy is exposing himself to the sun a lot, but at this point, his skin probably has adapted to it pretty well. But at the beginning, it caused damage or tissue remodeling in this case, which I don't believe to be super helpful. Um, the amount of exercise he's doing, he's exposing himself to a ton of tissue remodeling. I'm not particularly a big fan of that either, especially on a daily basis. And the third thing is the diet. That is probably the worst. I can't give any kudos to his diet in almost any way, especially the honey. I mean, if you're gonna complain about like insulin holding on to I don't really remember if sugar or fructose in this case, the one that's processed directly by the liver, increases insulin.
Not directly.
No, it does
Um,
not. Okay.
Not directly. No, no, no. Usually what happens is fructose, whenever it enters the liver, can be used to produce glucose, which
Yeah.
will then go into the bloodstream. And
And
then whenever it gets to about 130 milligrams per deciliter and higher, then insulin will be released beyond the basal level.
okay. Okay.
So he's saying that he introduced carbs to increase the insulin so that he could increase sodium retention,
Yes,
because he
exactly.
believed that what was happening was he was consuming a bunch of electrolytes, but he was just urinating all of them out. He wasn't actually using them. Which, first of all, is are carbohydrates the only thing that will stimulate insulin secretion?
No.
No, it's literally actually every single macronutrient, um, but just in different amounts per unit. Absolutely. Um, so that's one thing to understand. But then the other thing to understand is that you can have sodium, or you can have electrolyte imbalances merely on the basis of consuming them out of balance. Like if you are consuming a ton of sodium, but you're not matching it with any other minerals like
Yes.
magnesium and calcium and all these others, you could be really messing yourself up. I know someone that actually fixed all of the problems that Paul Saladino said that he had problems with by removing salt from his diet. So that tells me, okay, so the problem isn't just a lack of an absolute amount of electrolytes in certain people. It's actually an overabundance of one or two that is causing an electrolyte imbalance. Like the
Yes.
ratios are completely perturbed.
Yes, yes, thank you.
Um,
Yes. I made a
yeah,
video. I remember. You're right. Oh my God, you're bringing back memories. I made a video on like vitamin and mineral interactions and how they all affect each other basically. So when you consume one, and it affects another. It's this giant like web that you basically described, right? It's almost
yep,
this web where there's like an arrow going this way. This one's potassium, for instance, and then this one's sodium right here, and then there's like all these other different minerals, and there's this giant web of all of these ones connecting each other, either saying this one, when you increase this one goes down. When you increase this one goes up. When you increase this one, like it's just this giant web. So, wow. Well, there you go. You solved Saladino's problem. And I still, once again, I cannot explain why he's having that much honey. I genuinely think that's just an addiction at this point.
it is an addiction. The guy wakes up in the morning and drinks it out of the jar. Like, I mean, we're not talking about, And
Ooh.
look, I'm all for
Yeesh.
I'm all for the argument that says that just because something seems really extreme on the surface doesn't mean that it's inappropriate and you shouldn't be doing it. I'm all for that. Okay, but the fact is, drinking honey out of a jar like that. I mean, I don't know about you, honey for me, like even whenever I was eating a bunch of sugary whatever, if I had like a spoonful of honey, it felt so rich. I almost felt nauseous swallowing
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Like it's so rich. And it just, I look at that and I can't fathom that being not just a little like treat, but your morning, like before you eat, it's like your appetizer. You're drinking honey out of the jar, man. I can't imagine being comfortable doing that. Yeah, and you mentioned fructose too. That's something that people don't even understand. Like fructose exists. So sugars themselves, they exist in a certain equilibrium with their they're called tautomers of each other. So it's like mutarotation is the type of reaction. So you've got a glucose molecule, and typically whenever you see it drawn on in a diagram, it's shown in a hexagonal shape. So it's in a cyclic ring form. But that's actually, people don't even realize that that's actually not the thing that reacts with tissues. The cyclic form of it doesn't react with tissues. It's its unchained form, also called its linear form, where it actually
Yes.
breaks apart and then it shows a certain, and it exists in a very small concentration in physiological temperature and physiological pH. Like for example, glucose, 0.02% of glucose exists in its linear form at physiological temperatures and pH. Fructose exists in a concentration of about 1% in its linear form, which is about
Ooh.
45-fold greater than glucose does.
Yep.
And this helps explain why in vitro studies, so petri dish studies, if again, not, you don't want to trust those in isolation, but helping to form a composite inference, they can be used to help form a composite inference. In petri dish studies, you can see that the reactivity of fructose to tissues is like 7 to 10 times more than glucose
Yep.
is. So
Yep. And I think
yeah,
it's because, if I remember correctly, I did also do a video on that a while ago. And I think the reason was because fructose is a five-membered ring, if I remember correctly. So it's even less stable than the six-membered ring. So because of that, it's able to do
yeah,
this unchaining much, much more than, or at least that's one of the factors that I think, if I remember, causes for it to be able to glycate more often.
yeah. It's because of the fact that it's a ketose instead of an aldose. Because like the glucose itself is actually it's an aldohexose. It has an aldehyde functional group onto it that is exposed whenever it's unchained. Fructose, it's actually it's a ketohexose, so it actually exposes a ketone group, and the
Hmm.
ketones are highly reactive. Doesn't mean ketone bodies are reactive. I don't want
Yeah.
people thinking they're getting a bunch of glycation from ketones or something like that, or reactivity from ketones. But yeah, I mean there is nuance to the picture because this people think that this supports their point, like the sugar addicts. They think this supports their point, but it doesn't. It actually does. It does the opposite. I'm about to explain it. I haven't said it yet.
Wait.
There's
There. Well, hold on. Let me understand this. Sugar addicts are saying that it glycating more supports
no.
their argument.
I'm about to say what they are saying supports their argument.
Oh,
I
okay.
haven't said it yet.
Oh, okay.
They
Okay.
we typically say that, okay, well it's glycating your tissues like 45 times more than glucose. I mean, it exists 45 times more glycating substrate is present per mole of fructose as compared to a mole of glucose. They'll go, yes, but um, most of the fructose that you consume, hardly any of it enters the bloodstream, which is actually true. Usually, the range in the bloodstream postprandially, after you consume fructose, in the people studied in the amounts that they've consumed, before they consume it, it's about 0.2 to 0.5 micromoles. Afterwards, it's like zero. It still remains um, at most 5 micromoles in the blood. So very small amount, still an increase, but very small amount. And I go, you think that supports your point? It doesn't. Why does almost none of it enter the bloodstream? Why? Oh, because most of it is taken up by the liver in its first bypass, right? Because it's a fast-acting pathway, fructolysis. Why do you think that is? Because if it did enter the damn bloodstream, you'd have a glycation crisis on your
Exactly.
hands. That's
Exactly.
literally how the body evolved. That is how it evolved. It does it on purpose. And they go, well, yeah, great. So it still means that fructose isn't harmful. And I go, no, that doesn't mean
Oh
that,
my
because
God.
what is the consequence of the fast-acting pathway being a fast-acting pathway? What do you build up in the cells? It's not ADP, it's AMP, isn't it? Adenosine monophosphate. And what happens when you get a buildup of that? What does it break down into? Does it break down into, first of all, the breakdown product is actually the least of my concerns. It breaks down into a lot of urate, also colloquially considered uric acid, but which has implications in gout. But there's also some nuance and some ambiguity whether it's the cause.
Exactly. And by the way, when gout originally was called king's foot. And why was the king the one who mainly got it? It was because he was the only one who could afford sugar.
Yes, exactly. Yes, precisely correct. Yes. But that's not even the major concern that I have. Therefore, I'm like, okay, you know what? Hey, urate, maybe it causes gout, maybe it doesn't, maybe it puts an influence on gout. I'm not even, just to be extremely forgiving. I'll even let you have it. Like, okay, maybe urate doesn't cause gout. Okay. What is the actual thing that's happening as a consequence of AMP building up? You are perturbing your purine pool. You're actually lowering the concentration of ATP in your cells, in the liver cells. And I think that's actually, yes, fructose is immediately converted into fat, and also glucose, because of how the liver handles it, which is not a selling point, but still. But also, I think another reason why fructose contributes to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is because you're slowing the rate at which liver cells function, because you are causing the ATP concentration to lower. Like, you are literally causing that to happen in your liver cells as a consequence of eating so much fructose a day. I mean, if we're talking about hundreds of grams of sugar a day, divide that by 2 if you're having most of it in the form of sucrose, and that's how much fructose you're getting. Yeah. So, I mean, this is a problem, and people don't realize when people are reintroducing these carbs and all this stuff. Oh, I'm doing myself a favor because, yes, I'll have a decrease in my fasting blood glucose and all that. Which, yes, paradoxically that can happen, but that's a consequence of higher insulin, because insulin brings glucose down. So I don't understand. That's not necessarily a good thing. Because if that were the case, the lower the better, then you would want to spike your insulin, and maintain a very high level of it, right? Yep. Yeah, that's not how that works.
Yeah, exactly.
But they don't realize they're eating so much fructose, and what it's doing to them. Like, yes, the more energy you expend, the more chemical potential energy that is required to be produced because of your activities, the more you can prevent as much damage that you would incur if you weren't doing those things. Yes, absolutely. But can you mitigate all of it? Are there better ways to go? The answer to the first question is no, and the answer to the second question is yes.
Okay. Whoops. I meant to answer the second one.
Yes. No, yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I get it.
No, but that's great. I'm still shocked. People are really like introducing hundreds of grams of sugar. That still shocks me. Wait, so it's the snake. You're telling me it's basically the snake diet guy is the only one? Or
the snake diet guy was Cole Robinson was the guy that did it first months ago. This is a separate controversy. This is completely separate, because that one lasted for a month, and I think it was there was someone that purported to have leaked his group chat information, like what he was saying in his group chat, his little marketing chat. And I don't know if it's true or not, but it wouldn't surprise me that he said, before he ever started saying that you should be going on a sugar diet and all this stuff, basically abandoning 10 years worth of him promoting low carb and carnivore, because that's what he was doing. He said, before he came out and said this, he said, I bet that I could basically convince a bunch of people to eat hundreds of grams of sugar a day, and I bet that they would fall for it because they're a bunch of idiots. And then, well, I don't know the truth behind that, but yikes. It worked. He was right. He got a bunch of people to believe that was the way to go, and I think it was an attempt to increase, basically get back into the picture, because he was fading he's fading in relevance. And, well, sorry, Cole, it happened for less than a month and you're back in irrelevance. You're back to the realm of irrelevance, because unfortunately, shouting at the camera, "Hey, fatty," all the time isn't going to maintain a following of any integrity. It's gonna draw some casuals and some frivolous viewers, and that's not a way to grow and or maintain your business, so to speak. So Anyway, yeah, he was the first one to do this months ago with this whole sugar diet thing. That's dead. That's been dead for the last few months. That's a whole separate thing. Now, within the last week or two, it's been like 4 prevalent influencers starting to say that you can't. It's not even just that they're introducing carbs back in. They're saying that if you don't do it, like carnivore will cause metabolic dysfunction. And these are people, by the way, these are people that have been carnivore for, in some cases, as I said, 20 years. Like we're talking like a decade, between a decade and 20, 10 years, 20 years. I can't fathom like what's going on. I have no idea what's going on. One of these people is Zane Griggs. You may have heard of him before, maybe not.
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, more people have heard of him now because, well, he's telling people that they can eat a bunch of maple syrup and rice and potatoes and fruit and honey and all that stuff and make sure that it makes up 60+% of your calories per day.
Oh god.
But also to compensate for all of that substrate that you're consuming, all that food, go low fat too. Yeah.
God. Holy shit.
So if a bunch of fat gain and fat creation wasn't good enough for you, become nutritionally deficient too.
Holy shit. This is literally, isn't he just promoting standard American diet or?
Basically the whole food, well, to be fair, it's the healthy version of it, and also it's higher protein than the average American gets. But basically yes. I mean, granted, it's also low fat too, so it's a little different. It is a little different, but I mean, in terms of the absolute carb content, he very well may be eating more grams of carbs than the average American is at that point. They've gone full Saladino without actually invoking his name.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Wait, so who? Okay, now you got to tell me, who are all these people? Because I'm sort of curious about the names and seeing if I know any of them. That's crazy to me. What?
So we've got, I've been mainly focusing on Zane Griggs, but then we've got Lisa Wiedemann, so Carnivore Doctor on Instagram. She's been carnivore for a very long time. And I think she's bought, look, she's not too offensive with what she's saying, but she's bought into the dogma, I think. And she has completely conflated what dogma actually is. Okay, stating objective truths isn't dogmatic. Saying that this table exists in front of me and rejecting any claim that deviates away from that truth is not dogmatic because I'm not accepting everything under the sun. That's not what that means, okay? If that was what dogma actually was, then we wouldn't even be able to recognize that reality is objective in the first place, because that would be dogmatic. That would be exclusive. This is this whole like inclusivity movement and all this stuff. Like everything has to be. We have to be inclusive of everything. Moderate adultery. Include adultery, and murder. Because well, once in a while, you don't want to exclude everything like all the time. Hold on a minute. That's not how things work. We're not being dogmatic. We're recognizing truths. Okay, so that's one. Dr. Sarah Zaldivar recently, who I had on my channel. She had me on her channel. Look, I still respect her. I still think she's intelligent. I can't. As soon as you start saying that carnivore is going to cause nutritional deficiencies, I'm going to have a problem. I have a problem.
Did she say that?
Yes, she said it on multiple occasions.
Oh boy.
And I did a video on her, and by the time that this is released, it'll have already been released for quite a while. But yeah, that's another that I'm thinking of. So Zane Griggs, Sarah, Dr. Lisa Wiedemann, and then there's one more. I can't. Well, you know what? Actually, I'll tell you. There's one more that happened recently. I can't think of their name. Can't think of who it is. But what I will say is there was someone else, Rob Siwes, just a few months ago. Dr. Rob Siwes started saying, this is a man who literally in his video talking about this wore the animal hat representing the documentary Animal that he was in while telling people that strict carnivore is going to cause heart disease and diabetes. He said that he's been meat-based for years, believes in being meat-based, but he believes in having some carbs because your insulin can get too low and your glucagon can get too high, and therefore your blood glucose can get too high, blah, blah, blah. And he said, look, I'm a fat guy. I'm a fat guy. And I go, well, I didn't say that. I wasn't going to say anything. But okay, so you recognize that you've got some adiposity on you. And he goes, But the reason is because I keep eating carbohydrates to maintain within this blood range so I don't end up being, and I go, oh, but why would you, do you hear yourself? So you're sitting here saying that it's a good idea to be overweight. I mean, he's not like obese, but you're saying it's a good idea to be overweight, and you recognize that you probably would do a lot better in that department if you cut out all the carbohydrates, because you think that you're actually doing yourself a disservice because you're not in this certain blood range on a certain test, and you think it's going to cause yourself heart disease and diabetes. Last I checked, it's not really the skinny people that are developing a ton of diabetes.
Yeah, I
Okay,
know. Oh,
and
what a
heart disease.
surprise.
Yeah, like I don't. So Rob Siwes went astray months ago as well. I mean, it just keeps adding up. It just keeps adding up. And this is a threat. I when I sent you this email, I said that this was urgent. I didn't care if we were going to have casual conversations about this. I need to be prolific with the hammering in of this idea, or hammering in of the fact that carbohydrates are not required for human consumption.
Yeah.
They're not required for any function. None. Okay? The most grace I've ever given is towards the idea that maybe 10 or 20 grams can help with an insulin response a day. 10 to 20 grams is nothing, by the way. Nothing.
Yeah.
Okay? That's not hundreds of grams a day. And so, even if we were just going to have a casual conversation talking about the deleterious effects of fructose and the inanity behind, believing that blood tests are anything of any significance necessarily, like completely taken out of context. And also the discussion about science and all these, because they want to invoke science, they want to do this, but they don't even know how to interpret science. Doesn't matter what we talk about. I just wanted to talk about it at least because, and also bring you back into the picture because you've been doing a lot of other things. I'm not saying to stop doing that, but I was curious to bring you back into the picture about your thoughts on this controversy.
I am
Yeah.
100%. I can't see one reason why I'm against you right now in terms of the thoughts. Like, my thought is like, and I think it'll stay like this forever. If you're adding carbohydrates in, I genuinely think like you're either addicted this is the thing that I think also potentially could happen. But it's like more rare, and that's you're being bought out and you're willing to be bought out. Because
Yep.
I think
Yep.
that's a really, really big one that probably isn't talked about enough, because a lot of people look at it and they go like, oh, it's all science, it's all science. But then you have to look at reality and you have to realize that in a lot of cases, sadly, in a lot of cases, there are instances where people will, um, let's just say, they will suddenly have a change of heart because more money is introduced, and that money can buy them whatever they're missing in their life at that time. So for
Right.
instance, let's say they're trying to like fix their car or something. I don't know, right? Is some guy gonna, I guess you could say, sell his soul to the devil for like $10? Probably not, right? Not $10 isn't enough. But if they give you like maybe 100,000, or maybe they give you like a certain amount, for instance, let's say you get like a subscription and it's like, oh, you sell this new product now, and then however many people buy into this, well, now you're going to get part of that, right? And if they already have a really big follower base, well, I mean, and if they're lacking on money or they want more money, one of the two, right? Because Mr. Saladino, for instance, wants his his skateboard skating area, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
A
Yeah.
personally made one, which I was like, I'm still shocked, by the way, but he wants his personally made skateboard area. Then yeah, you might take him up on it. So people, I think they they look at, I don't like saying it again because it's sort of like it sounds like I'm against it, but they look at science as the end all be all, and you have to really look at reality as a whole and what comes with it, because there's a lot of nuance to a lot of this stuff. People aren't always necessary. They might be completely for carnivore still, but they recognize, "Oh, this gives me money and I'm kind of broke right now."
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a really, really big one. I wouldn't be surprised. Genuinely, from my personal experience, I wouldn't be surprised, because if they want their own skating rink like Paul Saladino, or I don't know, I don't know what they're gonna buy exactly, but whatever the money buys them, because it's a thing of power systems, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And
No. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. You're right.
yeah, it's like if you look at, for instance, I don't really want to get too much into this, but if you look at like I'll make a video on this eventually. Like government corruption is inevitable, and it's because of how power systems function. They're like there will always be corruption. You can never get rid of that corruption, and the reason you can't get rid of that corruption is because if you end up being less corrupt, you are giving the opponent an opportunity, or your whoever you're opposing, to be more corrupt and to take more funds on their side. So this is like a really common thing with campaign elections as one example, where if you look at like a lot of these people, if this is going to sound crazy, but if you look at like who would probably do what they say the most, it would be somebody who's already incredibly rich because they don't have to take campaign contributions from other people.
Yeah.
But once they start,
Yes.
exactly, once they start taking campaign contributions from other people, more campaign contributions, then they have to return the favor once they're in office, I guess is the best way to put it. And this is done in all areas. This isn't done in just in the presidency. This is done on a mayor level, like your
Yes.
city
Yeah. Yeah.
mayor
Yeah.
maybe,
Hmm.
or it's done like multiple different ways. So I think it's really important to look at it from multiple different lenses. Like science will tell you a really big picture. In fact, it'll tell you almost all of it in some instances, in my opinion. But there might be some little thing that it won't necessarily tell you. And I think in this case, the what you're talking about. Oh my God,
Yeah. There's. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
these people coming up with this like p hacking stuff, and it's just it's a pain. It's a pain to anybody who isn't a scientist because they don't know how to like read it as well, or they look at it and they go like, oh, this number, it's like 0.05. And first off, by the way, where does that 0.05 number even come from in the first place? It's an arbitrary number.
It's an arbitrary cutoff. You change your significance level according. Yeah, and the reason that 0.05 is chosen is because that leaves 95% of the area in the center to work with. You're working within basically two standard deviations, really standard errors actually. If you did three, if you wanted to include three standard deviations, or really again standard errors, that would cover 99.7%. So your significance level would be 0.0000, like it would be really small. Like it would be very small. So that's that's why, yeah, it'd be 0.003, I believe. Um
It's really, really, really small. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So
insanely small.
it's an arbitrary cutoff, and so what people will do is will oftentimes change their significance level to attain statistical significance. You don't want to make it too obvious by making the significance level like something completely oddly specific, like 0.0874. Like you don't want to do that. So
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
usually it's like 0.05 or then 0.10 or something like that. And then you've also got the phenomenon whereby someone will perform a one-tailed test as opposed to a two-tailed test, because that often highly influences whether or not you'll actually attain statistical significance as well. They do a lot. There's a lot of methods in which you can do it. I know all the methods because I know how to do this stuff, which was what separates me from like 99.9% of all these influencers out there who don't know how to read anything more than the abstract of papers. But anyway, yeah. Well, you know what, Blaise? We're at the top of the hour. That was a good. I think that's a good place to end it. I knew that I had faith that you and I would agree on this.
I do.
Wanted to, yeah, and I'm also glad that you touched on your. I mean, you didn't touch too much on it, but you still alluded to the fact that you are still going strong with carnivore. You're still doing well with it,
Oh yeah.
and not only are you doing well, you're doing great with it. Like it's helped you um, tremendously, and also seems to continue to help you in ways that you didn't really anticipate. Just when you thought it was over, things get better.
Exactly. Exactly,
Yes.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
my skin is probably like the biggest example because if you look at my skin on all these videos like that I've been making before and after, it's a huge, huge difference. And
Mhm.
this is all because of meat. And by the way, if I add in the spice, like for instance I did before, you will see it literally on my skin. You will see like a giant marker here, for instance, which used to be here actually. I don't know if you could still see it like partially on this side of the nose, but there's this little indent right here. That was because of spice. Like this is all like when you test it on yourself and you have been full carnivore for a very long time, you will see a very instant reaction on your body. And you don't necessarily have to look at the blood test or whatever and go, "Oh, great, my number increased or my number decreased or whatever." Right? Just look at like objective reality because people throw
Presentation. Presentation is supposed to, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. It's just too many people just throw away objective reality all the time, and it's sort of frustrating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, completely agree. Well, Blaise, it was good talking to you. It was good to, see you after your hiatus and your sort of, again, detachment away from the carnivore space. And it was also good to update you on what's going on, because I thought that you had known more about it, but no, it was good. It was good talking nevertheless. And we'll keep in touch. Um, Maybe one day you'll come back to the movement. Who knows?
Who
Who
knows?
knows?
Maybe. I mean, if they give me enough content, I might. Because honestly, hearing that's pretty ridiculous.
Hear that, critics? Keep
Yeah.
dumping sugar down your throat. Recruit more people.
I mean,
Anyway.
honestly, I might. I really might just make more content if about that. If they genuinely or that's. I think I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna call it as it is. I think it's stupid, but if they give it to me, I'll take it, maybe.
All right. Sounds good. Well, we'll keep in touch, and yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.